Hello and welcome. Happy late Valentine's Day. I wanted to share with you the last card that I created for my Valentine series. I was traveling on Valentine's Day, so I did not have time to edit the video before, but I wanted to share it with you nonetheless. For this card, I am using this stamp set by the Ink Road Stamps, which is super adorable. It's called Full Circles, and it has all these different circles that are like different doodles and different patterns. Perfect for background stamping and, creating any backgrounds. So I pulled out some of my Distress Oxide inks, which are, my favorite right now to be ink blending. And I was trying to pick some colors that will still fall onto the Valentine's theme. So I picked Warm Lipstick and Wilted Violet. I was thinking about using the Festive Berries, but I ended up not using it, so I just put it to the side. But at the beginning here, I start using a very light hand with the ink. But as I go along, I decided that I wanted it to be a little bit heavier color. So I go in and put it a little bit more. I am using a little piece of scrap paper to hold my paper on the side that I already put the ink or that I blended with the worn lipstick. The reason why I do this is because when you are blending with Distress Oxide inks, this ink stays wet on your paper a little bit longer, so when you put your fingers there, you would actually have those impressions left on the paper if you don't put something over to protect it. And I did not want any fingerprints on my card, but anyway, once I was doing that, I decided to go ahead and finish going back with the second coat and make it a little bit heavier. I tried to blend it as much as I could, but I didn't want there to be, like a very smooth blend because I wanted to see the difference of both the colors, which, they're very, very different colors. So you're going to be able to see it, regardless. But I didn't want it to look like a line just going across, if that makes sense. So, yes, like I said, I apologize that this card is coming or this video is coming after Valentine's Day, even though it is a Valentine's series, for the title. But, like I said, I wanted to share it with you because this was the last card that I created for this purpose. And as I was pulling my stamps, to try to decide which card I was going to make, I came across this other stamp set that is on the top right hand corner. You actually only see a piece of it, but it's a stamp set that I purchased at Michael's a long time ago, and it came with some stencils. I believe the company's Artsy, but I had never used it. So here's that lovely stamp set again. And what I did here, because I like the way and the spacing of the pattern of the circles, I decided to keep them all into the acetate that they come in. And to do this, so I can stamp everything, I'm using my stamping platform, and I am going to be putting just a little bit of tape onto the acetate, so that way when I close my lid, it will pick it up and stay there. So as you can see, it worked perfect. But just to be sure, I grabbed a couple of other pieces of tape and put it onto the side, onto the lid, so that way it would not move or come off, because I wanted to do some stamping. And for this, I am using the same colors, but I am alternating them. So I am putting the Wilted Violet on the top and the Worn Lipstick on the bottom, so that way you can see it more. And the good thing about these inks are that they're perfect for stamping as well, because it kind of stays on top, so you'll be able to see the color that you're stamping. Now, when I did my first stamping, I don't know if it was because I didn't press it good enough or I didn't ink it well, that, my impression wasn't good, but I had to just stamp it a couple times and it was like nothing happened. So, moving on, I wanted to do some heat embossing onto the circles to kind of give them a little bit of dimension. And, I just like when you have something embossed and you touch it, it feels you feel the embossing powder. But I did not heat set my panel before I stamped the images, so I had to heat set everything because, as like I said, this ink stays a little wet a little bit longer, and I didn't want my embossing powder to be sticking onto the whole panel. I only wanted it onto the circles. So I use my heat tool to heat set it, and then I am using my anti-static tool, so that way I can take all the static and make sure that the powder is not going to be sticking everywhere. Bring it back to my stamping platform, and because I had not moved my stamp from the panel or from the lid, I still have it there. So yeah, I'm going to be using my Versamark ink, so that way I can stamp it. Again, I had to do this a couple times just to make sure that I got everything in there. Once I was sure that I stamped everything, because I don't know for what reason, for some reason it was not stamping on some sections. And anyway, once I made sure that it was good, I was ready to go ahead and use my embossing powder. And for this, I pulled out my embossing powders, and I was trying to decide if I was going to be using the clear one, or or use something different. But then I decided to go with this pearl, like pearl-like color. It is kind of clear, but it also has this like a pearl sheen to it. So if you put it onto color, it will kind of pick up that color but give it this pearl look. The embossing powder is from Recollection, so but it is very pretty when you stamp it. As you can see, I have the little stamped section onto my lid, so I can see what it would look like. But you'll see what happens here. I still miss a couple of little spots when I was inking, but that's okay because I could later on fix that. And just pouring it back onto my jar. And I love using the coffee filters for these because it's very easy to put them back in there. So yeah, it's a good tool to have. So I am using my heat tool here to heat set everything, and you can start to see what it's looking like. And also you can see why I wasn't too happy with it, because even though you can see it, in real life it looked more muted. It kind of took off over the color of the stamping, so you can't really see it much. And I was not too happy with that. So my solution to it was to remove the heat, the powder. So the way that I decided to do that is just heat set everything again. So by putting my heat tool onto each one of the circles, I used a paper towel to kind of pick up that powder back again. And you don't want to just put your towel there and pick it up, because it will get stuck there, so you don't want paper there. I kind of figured out the hard way, but you just kind of like dab it and pick it back up. I then decided to use my spritzer that was mixed with some of the Perfect Pearls water, and then you can see that sheen there, that it still looks pretty. So some of those circles with the patterns, they still have that shimmery color from the embossing powder that I used, but also from the whole thing has the shimmer from the Perfect Pearls. I then use a die to cut every single little circle out, because I wanted to give some dimension to some of them. So I am just gluing this panel back onto my card base, which is 4¼ by 5½. I want to mention that I also cut this panel using my just a regular die that has like a pierced edge around it from a reel, and I put it all around. So then now I am just going to be putting all of the little circles back into their respective homes, and on some of them I am going to be using foam tape, and on some of them I am just going to be using my glue to put them on. So here I just kind of have them laid out, so that way it can make the process a little bit faster, so I'm not looking through circles and trying to decide where they belong. So I have my stamp set right in front of me, so that way I can see where they would go, and how they will look. I do apologize also. I wanted to mention that for most of my card here, I am a little bit off frame, so you can only see half of the card. I thought that my camera was center right, but it must have moved in the middle, but so I do apologize for that, but I hope that you can still kind of see what I'm doing here. Like I said, I'm just kind of alternating. So what I did is foam tape, glue, foam tape, glue, foam tape, glue, and then just kind of went down the aisle that way. At the very bottom, though, the last two, I kind of left them all with glue, because I wanted to put my sentiment there on actually the last row. I wanted to put my sentiment there, so I needed some space to make sure that it wasn't going to be, uneven, and I decided to just glue all of those 3 circles onto the base. So for the sentiment, like I said, I was using this one from I believe it's Artsy. I'll have to look it up and see, but it's one that I purchased from Michael, and it says, "Do more of what you love." I thought it was a very perfect sentiment to do for us crafters, and also to say, for Valentine's Day, it could be love spending time with friends, and do more of what you love. I did use one of the little stamp sets that was included onto this stamp set. If you see at the bottom, there was all of those little sentiments that I removed when I was stamping, because I didn't want my panel to accidentally stamp them onto it, so I had to remove them. But I am just going to be stamping this sentiment, and I decided to give it a little bit of a curve to kind of go around that circle that it was. And for this, I am using my VersaFine ink, and just because this is new and is very juicy, and I just like how like the impression looks very good. Now, when I was stamping this one, I needed to move it a little bit, and then I kind of messed up the second stamping because I was not holding it, and as you can see, I didn't have that paper laid on a corner, so it moved just a tiny bit, and I didn't like that, so I went back and I restamped it, just flipped it over and restamp it. And then for this one, I am just trying to see where my little piece of the curved one sentiment that I had was going to be going. So I laid it onto the paper, and then I cut them out. I decided to use my, one of those old craft scissors that, we still may have in a stash, to cut the sentiment around and just give it a little bit of a, fun pattern. And then for the little circle, I just used my scissors, cut it like a little banner, just like did a fishtail on each end, and that was it. So for that one, because it was going to be right in behind one of the circles that was popped up with foam, I decided to just glue that one straight onto the card. And I just put some glue, and I'm gluing it back down there. Just trying to make sure they kind of fit there good. And then the other one, I also just glued it straight onto the card, just underneath those two popped out circles. So I didn't want to give any more dimension other than the circles because I wanted those to stand out. Now, to finish embellishing my card, I decided to pull out some of my sequins, and here I'm just choosing some of different colors. Again, I'm choosing some pink and purple, so that way it kind of stays within my color palette. Don't want to add any more different colors here, but I am just putting random little dots of the Ranger Multimedia Matte, because it is the strongest glue that I know that would hold the sequins, so that way I can make sure that they're not going to be falling apart. But again, here I am just putting the colors randomly, using purples and pinks, all around. And I thought that was a pretty fun element to add a little bit of shine, but a little bit of interest. So I am just trying to glue those here. Like I said, just randomly picking the different ones that I could think of. And I think that this stamp set is really, really versatile. It has a lot of potential to use for different things. You don't have to keep it as it is, but I thought it would be a lot of fun to keep the patterns as they are, and with the spacings, because how they had it already set up, they did the work for me. So anyway, I am looking forward to using this stamp set for other different projects. I think that you could also use them to turn them into balloons, to give decoration to balloons, and that would be pretty neat. But anyway, here is my card now. I was thinking about, leaving the inside blank, but I thought it looked kind of plain. So then I decided to do this, which was pull out some of those circles and just randomly put them around my card base. So I'm just trying to pick 3 different ones. I wasn't sure if I was just going to stamp them on the bottom, just put a few here and there, or if I was going to be doing something different. But I went with, just laying them like this, using a stamping block to pick them up. And then I used both the Distress Oxide inks to get some ink on them. Just kind of, try to do half and half. And then I just went around stamping it onto the edges of my card. So I did first generation, second generation, and third generation stamping. So I just wanted them to be all over the place, just kind of give the same gradient look of looking, darker to lighter. I don't know if that makes sense, but it worked perfect because I was able to stamp it all 3 times. You can still see it, and you have a little bit of that extra interest in the inside of the card. So that completes my card. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and that you enjoyed this Valentine series. Hope you had a wonderful Valentine's Day, and thank you again for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.